So my name's John Copans. I'm with the Vermont Council on Rural Development. And one of the great things I get to do is be part of this VECAN conference planning team. Really, this annual event is so important, such an important part of the calendar, such a great way to get motivated. So again, I'm John Copans from the Council on Rural Development. I have a simple job here, which is to introduce. We've got a pre-recorded video that includes some local success stories. But of course, I'm not just gonna. I'm gonna take advantage of having the microphone to just share a little bit of perspective as I do that. You know, at the Council on Rural Development, one of our core beliefs, philosophies, is that motivated individuals and groups of individuals at the community level have tremendous power to create change in their communities and in the state of Vermont as a whole. And that's not just a belief that we've got, it's something that we see all the time. And it's part of why I find this conversation and the work that you all do so powerful. You know, one of the things that I find a little bit tiresome is there's this constant debate about sort of, do we need to solve climate through individual actions, or is it about grand global solutions? And of course, I think what we all know is it's a spectrum. We've got to work at both ends. We do need big solutions. We need to work at a state scale, at a federal scale, at a global scale. But the reality is all of those big solutions have to land with individuals and in our communities. And that's the work that we all do. We bring those big policies and programs and we help them land in our neighborhoods and in our communities. That's our special role and our special work. You know, I did a little thing with the Climate Action Plan. It's massive, right? It's a really important document. Huge kudos to the group that drafted that, to Jared, to Secretary Moore from A&R, to Johanna Miller, all of those folks on that Climate Action Committee. So I searched for the word community in that report. 115 times the word community shows up. 96 times the word municipal shows up in that report. 106 times the word regional shows up in that report. That is a little proxy or measure of the fact that all of those, you know, when you think about a clean heat standard, yes, that's a state policy. That's going to happen at a state level. But the reality is every Vermonter needs to make decisions that contribute to that, right? Every time a Vermonter is replacing their boiler, every time they're getting a new car, every time they're thinking about heat pumps, there's a decision to make at that point. And that's where we have a special role, is helping partner with our communities and helping people arrive at those decisions that add up to big change in our communities and in the state of Vermont. And that's part of what we're going to see in these videos. You know, I'm going to close before I turn it over to the videos with a little anecdote of my own. 25 years ago, a friend of mine from college, I don't know why we were talking about shaving, but he told me that he shaves with a shaving brush and soap, right, instead of shaving cream. And one of the reasons he told me this is he talked about the waste of going through one of those cans of shaving cream every single month, let's say, and the economy. So 25 years ago, I said, that seems easy. That seems great. This shaving brush, 25 years old, I've probably used 10 of these cakes of shaving soap over the last 25 years because they last forever. I've probably saved like $200, $300, not to mention tremendous amount of waste that hasn't gone in the waste stream in the form of those cans of shaving cream. Why am I talking to you about that? Because I just think about those conversations that we all have on a daily basis that informs the choices of our neighbors. We have so many opportunities, and it's little things like how we shave, how we get around, how we heat our homes. All of those little decisions add up to big impact. And that's what we need, is we need to really change. And so with that, let me turn it over to these videos. You all are doing huge work in your communities, and you're innovative, you're trying new things, you're connecting with folks in your community in new ways. You know, two years ago, I think it was, at the VECAN conference, as part of these local stories, somebody talked about the window dressers program. It was brand new. Folks in Glover had tried it for the first time. This season, I think we've had 10 builds around the state of window dressers, a perfect example of the replication that's possible because of this network that you all make up and all of the work that you do in community. So with that, we're going to hear from the towns of Richmond, Barre, Bristol, and Thetford. That's a pretty good mix of Vermont community. So Becca, I'm going to turn it over to you to bring up the video.
I'm Jeff Forward. I live in Richmond. I've been the town energy coordinator for almost 30 years. And during that entire time, we have struggled with this issue of public transit. You know, Richmond is a relatively rural town. We do have one of the, if not the most popular park and ride in the state, which is great, except that it's 2 miles outside of our village. Along Route 2, a very busy state highway, and you can't walk there, you can't ride a bike there. You can do it, but you take your life in your hands to do that. So this has been a very difficult challenge for us to try to figure out how to connect the village, which is the heart of our town, to the park and ride. And just beyond the park and ride is a mobile home park with 145 units out there. Those two things are disconnected from our village. And the only way that we have been able to even begin to think about how to connect them is rural transit. But it's been really hard. You know, it's been really hard to get, there's no way that we could pay for it, our town could pay for a transit service alone. The regional transit service hasn't been interested in getting this far out. So, you know, we do have a link, you know, that goes from Burlington to Montpelier that stops at that park and ride. That's great. But that's it. If you want to go, you know, to Burlington, you have to, on a bus, you have to go in the first thing in the morning and come back last thing in the afternoon. And there's no other service along the way. So EAN had one of their 5-minute pitches at their conference on the future of rural transit, a pilot that they wanted to experiment with in a rural area to connect a school district with public transit in a rural place. And to my mind, we fit the bill perfectly. We have one of the larger school districts in the state. Geographically, we own our own buses. The Mount Mansfield Union School District owns their own buses. We have something like 30, 35 buses. We have a transit coordinator who is just wonderful. So the hope is, and we're on track for this, is next year at some point, we will get an electric public transit bus to run routes that take school kids to school, but also run routes to take the rest of the public, you know, back and forth from our village, Richmond is connected to Underhill. We're in the same school district. The idea is to connect those two towns and to do it with an electric bus. It's a very cool idea. And we could absolutely not have done this without the coordination of EAN. You know, the two challenges are setting it up and making it run. And then the second very big challenge is getting people to use it. There's a lot of skepticism in the public transit world that you know, people will do this kind of ridership. I'm hoping that you know, the role that my energy committee and I hope to take is to encourage ridership. I hope that we're going to be a valuable partner in this, and in that We did connect the EAN and the grant funders to our school district, for example. So, I think that's one of the ways that the town energy committees work really well together with, state and federal programs, is we're the boots on the ground. We know our community, we know the influence makers, and we know the right people to talk to. And that's certainly what happened in this case. I'm hopeful, as I say, this is a problem that we've had as long as I've been energy coordinator, probably longer, in Richmond, and we have not been able to figure it out. And I'm hopeful that if we can figure it out, I think it's transferable to a lot of different places in the state. So I'm very encouraged by this.
Hi everyone, Elaine Wang from the Barre City Energy Committee here. According to Efficiency Vermont, Barre City residents are among the most energy burdened in the state. That's because we have lower than Vermont average income. We also have a high proportion of renters compared to other communities and an older than average housing stock, including rental stock. The Energy Burden Report motivated the Barre City Energy Committee to be more intentional about targeting renters and landlords. Frankly, it is hard for us to target renters because Barre City does not have a rental registry and there's no centralized contact database. In any case, they aren't the decision makers, so we knew we needed to do more to engage landlords. There's 2 projects from our year I'd like to tell you about that relate to landlords. The first one is a focus group. We contacted the owners of 2 property management companies and a prominent landlord in the community to get their insight in a focus group format. We were able to get them to the table in part due to personal connections, in part due to their own interest in energy efficiency, and in part because the Energy Committee has been active in the community long enough to have some credibility. And I think because we had a focused enough question for them that they felt it might be worth their time. The question that we asked them was we wanted their help in designing a heat pump campaign. We were delighted that they were very quick to say that actually the major challenge of heat pumps was buildings that weren't already weatherized, which is what we all want to hear. We had a rich conversation, and our key takeaways from the focus group with them were that the majority of savvy property managers and landlords, and they weren't just speaking for themselves, probably don't need to be sold on weatherization. What they need is the opportunity of tenant turnover and enough upfront capital, of course, to do the project with. Furthermore, we think it is possible that local individuals in Barre City could become the financiers of such projects. It's too early to say whether this piece will turn into a successful program in Barre City, but we think others could take these insights and run with them. Landlords have a harder time doing deep energy efficiency retrofits on their buildings unless they are vacant. Consider designing a campaign or program around this fact, and as you're designing, engage your local landlords and investors on the weatherization topic, or you might loop them in or hook them in with a related topic that might be more likely to get their interest, like solar or heat pumps. Look for opportunities to bring people together who don't usually brainstorm on weatherization to do just that, and then capitalize on what happens. Finally, another insight, engage with your town planner who will have information on vacant buildings and on landlords. Speaking of planners, that brings me to Project 2. The Barre City Planner is the Energy Committee's staff liaison and has been a great partner. She maintains the city's list of landlords and their contact information. Efficiency Vermont offered to do a landlord campaign with the Energy Committee, meaning they would provide the energy efficiency experts for walkthroughs of rental housing and the language of the invitation. The planning office for Barre City did the heavy lifting by doing a mailing to all Barre City landlords with that invite letter that was jointly from the Energy Committee and from Efficiency Vermont. We consider that effort a win because it resulted in over a dozen landlord consultations and walkthroughs, which is a lot more than we've ever been able to get. My sense, though, is that the credibility the Energy Committee has built over time through our activities and presence over the years did help with the turnout, but without the mail campaign, we would not have been able to reach them for this particular effort. The committee in the past has sent bill stuffers with water and property tax bills, again with the excellent support of city staff. This saved money, and it might be something that you want to consider doing. But we probably also lost some attention. I think most people focus on just the bill itself when they get those property tax bills and water bills and sewer bills. Spending the money on a standalone mailing was helpful for our turnout in this case. Going forward, we hope to learn more from other communities on how you've tackled weatherization of your rental housing.
I'm Tom Ward, and I'm a member of the Thetford Energy Committee. I'm here to provide an overview of the Thetford Energy Committee's Electric Vehicle Ambassador Program. Like all energy committees, our committee has many goals we hope to meet, including transportation goals. The Thetford currently has about 45 EVs in town, and our town plan calls for Thetford to have 187 electric vehicles in town by 2025, or about 8% of all cars and light trucks. We're aiming for about 50% by 2035 and 100% no later than 2050. Since only about 2% of vehicles in Thetford are EVs, it's going to take many different strategies to reach our EV goals, and the Ambassador Program is just one such effort. To be clear from the start, I did not invent the concept of an Ambassador Program. I borrowed it. Last December, I saw Sustainable Hanover posted a survey seeking EV mentors. I thought, what a great idea, neighbors educating neighbors. At our next Energy Committee meeting, I suggested we create a Thetford EV Ambassador Program. Given the green light, I began research and quickly discovered that Harry Higgs of the Lime Energy Committee had created a very good EV buying resource posted on the Limetown website. I connected with Harry and we compared notes. Then, as I continued to conduct research for an EV overview guide to post on the Thetford Town website, I discovered some really great EV information on the Drive Electric Vermont website. I contacted Dave Roberts of Drive Electric and asked if I could borrow some of their graphics and content. He was good, in his words, with a bit of judicious copying and pasting from our site. So I borrowed bits and pieces from Dave's website, wanting to determine how many and what models of EVs we have in Thetford, and hoping to find some owners that would be willing to talk about their EVs with neighbors and residents. I posted a survey on our town listserv and Facebook pages. I estimate we have about 45 EVs in our town of about 1,100 households. So the 33 survey responses I received was a really high response rate. And of these 20 people, of these people, 20 said they'd be happy to be an ambassador and talk about their vehicles. It turned out that we have EVs from 11 different manufacturers and 16 different models, including one electric motorcycle. Now that I have identified some ambassadors, what were the next steps? Well, the ambassadors help edit and review the EV guide information I had created so far. They generated frequently asked questions, which I would post on the town website, and they provided testimonials regarding their EV purchase decision and ownership experience, which are now posted on the website page that lists the ambassadors and their vehicles. Some of you are likely familiar with the community workshop approach used by Window Dressers' window insert program. One of my goals for the Ambassador Program was to similarly involve as many people from the community as possible to help raise overall interest in the program and awareness of all of our Energy Committee programs. I was really excited by the response rate to the surveys and the enthusiastic participation with the creation of the FAQs and testimonials. The community involvement also proved to be a very effective way to get the project accomplished. Without the ambassadors' help, this would have been a much heavier lift for me, and their involvement greatly improved the quality of the program. So as a community effort, the EV Ambassador Program was born. In April, I posted the EV overview, the FAQs, and a list of ambassadors in the Energy Committee section of the Thetford Town website. So far, the ambassadors have received about 20 inquiries. If this rate keeps up, we may have 75 to 100 over the year. Considering there are only about 25 EVs in town right now, and maybe 20 will be purchased by residents this year, this feels like a great success. I recently polled the ambassadors and asked them if they'd be willing to display their vehicle and talk to people about it if we hold an EV demo day. 15 of the 20 ambassadors responded within 24 hours. 12 said yes, 3 said maybe, and no one said no. So these are really engaged folks. So that's how the program was developed, where it stands now. And I want to thank Harry Higgs and Dave Roberts for their input on the program, along with all of our ambassadors. And as a finishing thought, Some of you, especially some of you who are a little bit older like I am, are familiar with the name Abbie Hoffman. He wrote a book in the 70s titled Steal This Book. So please steal this program. Feel free to reach out to me if I can help your energy committee create your own ambassador program. And that's my presentation.
I'm Sally Burrell from the Bristol Energy Committee. And I want to talk about an experience I had this year going around to the businesses in town and asking each of them how they're doing and what they would be interested in around learning around their energy use and cost and that kind of thing. Started out by meeting up with Brad from Efficiency Vermont, who came along with me and brought a bunch of materials for rebates and more information that people could take. And we left stuff with almost everyone along the way so that they could learn more and get in touch around rebates and kind of tune into what they might want to do next for saving money and saving energy. So we started out by going door to door, meeting the folks who either owned it or worked there, sometimes a business, a building owner even. It was great. It was so great to meet people. They were glad to talk with us and just say what they're concerned about, what they've been wondering about and not knowing what to do about. We went to one business that had so much refrigeration that and a whole roof full of solar, yet still they were really trying to figure out how to cover their costs. And it was a reminder to me of what a big energy user businesses are. They really need help. They're so busy. It was handy for them to have us just show up and say, hey, we'd love to talk about your energy worries. And then there were some that, were worried about what the building owner and their responsibility were. And so we ended up, I later followed up by talking to building owners and they were very open to learning about what was going on in the different spaces and what they could do and how they could work with their renters. So that all felt like, wow, I've never done this before as an energy committee member, walking around the town talking to business people about energy. We usually work with residents. So it was really helpful to have Efficiency Vermont because they had a list of all the rebates and the ways that they could access money and rebates and that kind of thing. That was helpful. I wouldn't have even thought of doing it without them, but it's something that I know I can do now myself. Like I have now, just experienced the situation. Anyway, I just want to say that energy committees, this is another area that we can make a difference. So give it a try in your town. Walk around and talk with people and have some information on hand that you can give them. So if any energy committees are interested in doing this, and I think it is a great way to connect with that whole population, reaching out to Efficiency Vermont, or feel free to reach out to me if you want. But they would be willing, I'm sure, to do this more often because it's a sector that isn't getting as much attention, it seems, on a local level. It was a great experience for me.
Hey folks, huge thank you to Jeff, Elaine, Tom, and Sally for sharing those stories. Really, it's so encouraging to hear. And what's amazing is every year we've got new things to share. Like we're in a constant phase of innovation and creativity with this work in our communities. Just in closing, a few themes I heard that I felt like were common across those, and some we've already talked about. The role that we play is that liaison role. Efficiency Vermont has no direct relationship with those landlords, or not much of one with those landlords in Barre. So the Energy Committee comes up with creative ways to make those connections, to really build those relationships, similar with Sally in Bristol. So it's being that interface. The other thing that I heard is around community building. You know, one of my observations in this throughout this pandemic is how important our communities are in response to a crisis. And I think as we look ahead into our future, that community resilience, those community connections are going to be as important as ever. So Tom talked about that, using this EV ambassador program also as a way to build community, just like Window Dressers does, just like so many, Sally getting connected to her individual business owners, or Elaine getting connected to landlords in Barre. That's building community. And then finally, partners are so important in doing this work, whether it's Drive Electric and the great resources they have, whether it's Efficiency Vermont, whether it's other neighboring energy committees where we can work together. Those partnerships are really key as we think about how we do our work at the local level. And so great appreciation to all of you again for sharing those stories. I think we're going to have Sarah Brock now, the fabulous Sarah Brock from Vital Communities, join me, because we're now going to go and bring your voice into this conversation. So Sarah, take it away.